All right, picking up where we left off, we're going to go ahead and turn our layer with our drawing back on so that we can get our little icon drawing, and we're going to create a vector path out of that. One of the things I did notice is that my type here, like the O is a little outside on my drawing from where I placed it here. So I might have to go back and readjust my type later a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to turn the type layer visibility off so that I'm not distracted by it. And I'm going to focus primarily just on making a vector drawing of this mountain shape. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can see a little bit more with clarity. Now, to do that, I want to go over here and I want to use the pen tool. First of all, before I say that, if you've got perfect circles or perfect squares anywhere, something that's really important is that you probably don't want to try to draw those with pens. You'd probably want to use like the ellipse tool for a perfect circle. So if I click on the ellipse tool and I draw an ellipse, you'll see that that draws an ellipse. But if I hold down shift, of course, it'll constrain it. And the same principle, if I hold down shift and option, it will draw from the center and constrain it. Same is going to be true for squares with the rectangle tool, right? So this, for instance, would draw a square. And you can use this to create other shapes too. Like for instance, if you wanted to create a triangle out of a square, for instance, you could then go to this selection tool, click and hold it, and then choose the direct select. And then you could take this point, for instance, in the corner, let's say, and you could delete that point either by hitting delete key, but the problem is if you hit the delete key, it makes what's referred to as an incomplete path. What I can do is go here where it says the pen tool, click and hold it, and then I can choose like delete anchor point, and I can just delete that one anchor point. This is okay, right? We'll do that. And it gives me something that is now a complete path still. It didn't turn something into an open path. And now I can take that and I could do my free transformation. I'm doing Command T. You could do Control T. I could rotate it, right? Now I've got a, oops, let's see, a triangle, for instance, if I wanted to use that in combination with something. Anyway, you get the idea. So I'm just gonna get out of that. Let's go back. I don't apply, right? And I'm just gonna delete that because I don't need this shape at all. In fact, let's just get rid of that whole thing. Okay. So those are some tools that you can use to create shapes that are, you know, a little bit more traditional. Again, I'm going to use this pen tool. So I'm going to click and hold the pen icon and I'm going to go to the original pen tool. Now, a couple of things, and this is something that should be kind of a recap since this is an advanced class, but if it's, you know, if you don't remember, then I'll just really quickly cover it. So with vector tools, if I click, 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 that gives me straight points. And then if I come up here to the original or the origination point, see how I get that circle? That means it's going to create a closed path for me. Now, when I drew this, you'll notice up here it says path. I could have started with it drawing a shape. When I draw a path, that's something that's kind of useful in terms of being able to like turn that then into a regular selection, like a pixel based as opposed to a vector based selection. For instance, if I were to go up here to window and go to where it says paths, you can see that I've got my path here that's highlighted. Well, if I were to click this little dotted line, that's my marquee tool. It's going to turn it into a marquee, and I could use that as a raster clipping path or something like that if I wanted to. Or I could save it as a selection. And now I can just hit deselect. What I would recommend that you do instead is when you choose your pen tool, go ahead and make sure that shape is selected. So you're drawing a shape from the get-go. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that I showed you how to do click, click, click and draw straight lines, and then there's a shape now. You see it fills according to the fill because I'm not choosing path, I'm choosing shape. I could apply a stroke to it if I wanted. Here's the width of the stroke. Here are the different types of stroke line options and so on. But what I want to do instead, I'm just going to delete that, is also show you how you can draw curved lines. If I click, that's a straight point. If I click and hold and drag, then I start to get this curved point, right? And then I could come over here and draw another curved point, for instance, and so on and so on. And you'll notice that if you're not careful, you start to get these weird things happening. Right now, it looks like it's a filled shape, but it's not. and it's just trying to complete it. It's using shape as the option here, but this is not a completed path. It's still an open line segment, but it's trying to fill it as if it's a shape. This is something you shouldn't do. You should really try to use completed paths or completed shapes if you actually want something to be a filled shape. Like, don't have an open line segment like this if you actually intend for it to be filled. I'm just going to delete all of that, and I'm going to draw something a little bit that has a little bit more constraint. So for instance, if I were to come over here and click and hold shift, then you can see that I have more control over my line, and it gives me something that has, you know, a little bit more I guess shapeliness or whatever. And if I came down, if I held shift again, it would do a line that's completely straight down, right? And then I could come over here, and I'm just making something up right now. I could draw that, and then I could go ahead and click up here, and I could finish my path. Now you'll notice that this has got a sharp edge. Maybe I want this to have sort of like a teardrop shape up here. If I wanted that, and I started off with a straight point, and you're like, oh, I really want that to be a curved point, you could always come back here to the pen tool, and you choose this thing called Convert Point Tool, and you can click and hold this and convert it, right? And so what I've done is I've just now converted this to a curved point. So I can come over here now with my my path selection tool, and I want to click and hold to get to the direct selection, which is the white arrow, and I can click on that line and I get the handles for it, right? And you can see that I can adjust it so that I can start to get this other shape, and let's just pull that out, and that's a little bit better, right? And that might be more what I wanted. Anyway, so this isn't what I want to do. I actually want to trace a mountain. I just wanted to show you that as an option. So I'm going to take my black selection tool, and it will select the entire path, and I can just delete that. Okay. So that's a really quick reminder of how to use the pen tool if you have forgotten. Okay, and so you might need to practice a little bit and revisit some of your pen skills. But anyway, I'm going to go back over here to my pen tool, and I'm going to make a drawing of this mountain. First I'm going to just trace the outline of it, because later I can sort of use this interior shape and this interior shape as cutouts, you know, for something that would be like it would be either like a reversal knockout, so I could have a one color application, or if I want two colors, I could fill these with other colors. So let's go here, and I'm going to start on the left edge, and I'll start out here. And before I start climbing up this mountain, I actually want to look at this, and I know that I need to have a very straight line that's perfectly horizontal down here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to hold down my shift key and come all the way out to the edge here and click, and then that way it gives me a perfectly straight horizontal line so that I don't have to worry about it being slightly askew. So I thought that that was the most important thing to start with, because if I had started climbing up the mountain and I ended up down here, I wouldn't necessarily know where to put this point in order to close it so that the line would be perfectly straight. So this was the first line I needed to make for kind of the stability of the bottom of this icon. All right, now I can go up here and I can click. I think that was probably the point that made this most sense. And then you'll see right off the bat, I'm going to have a problem with this filling. Once I get up here, it might fill up too much, but I'll just keep going until I can get to a place where I think I need to make an adjustment. You know, maybe here, and then I've got a peak up here. And see, this is where I've kind of got a problem. Well, I'm just going to take a guess and I'll adjust it later. Yeah, see, it's in the wrong spot, but that's okay. I'll adjust it. And I've got one there and probably one here, something like that. Another one here, maybe another one here, maybe there. So what I can do now is I can also go over here and I can take this and I can turn the opacity down so I can see through to my other shape a little bit better. The other thing I could do is I could turn the fill off. I could have turned the fill off from the beginning. That would have been okay, just so I was drawing with a line. But anyway, this is what I've got so far. So I'm going to work with this. Now, again, if you need to adjust these points a little bit, you can come back over here, click and hold this black arrow and get to the direct selection tool. Remember, the direct selection tool, the white arrow, is going to allow you to select individual points. The black selection tool selects the entire path, right? But I want to be able to take this one point, for instance. Here, I'll zoom in. And I want to take this point and be able to move it here without moving the entire path, right? This one's okay. I think this one needs to be moved, so I'll click on it, and then I can move it. So you have to select it first by clicking on it, and then you can move it. I think this one I might want to come down and then have an extra point here. It looks like that might be kind of what I intended. So I'm going to take my pen tool and I'll choose this plus where it says add anchor point, and I will add an anchor point here by just clicking. You'll notice automatically that it put handles on there. By putting handles on there, that means it's by nature a curved point. If you wanted to check and make sure, you could take your selection tool and move the handle, and you see it gives me a curve. I don't want that. I'm just going to undo that. So what that means is I want to click and hold my pen tool, and I want to choose convert anchor point, or convert point tool, whatever, and I want to click that point, and then it gets rid of my handles. Now I have a straight point instead of a curved point. And now I can take my direct selection tool again, and I can click it, click the point I want to adjust, and I can move it, let's say maybe here. And so I've kind of got like this little bit of a jog. I'll select this one, maybe I'll move it up a little so it has a little bit more clarity and definition, like that, or something, right? And so this is what I've got for my outline for my mountain. I think I might be okay with that. I'll turn the opacity all the way back up again, and let's see what we've got. I'll click off of it with some other thing, and I'm not sure if I like the way that this jogs over here or not. I think I might want to adjust that. So I'm going to go over here, oops, and I'm going to use my direct selection tool. I think I do want to get rid of this extra point. And so what I'll do, I'll select that, and I need to go back over here under my pen options, and I need to choose delete anchor point tool, and I'm going to click on this point here. I'll zoom in so you can kind of see what I'm doing better. And I'm going to click on this while the little minus symbol is visible, and it gets rid of that. I'm not really sure that I necessarily like the way that this is either. I'm going to turn the opacity down and see what my original drawing had. And I think I might want it to go from here to say here or something, right? So, or maybe here to here. I might like that better. So I'm going to get rid of this point too. And I think I might like it then if I just take my direct selection tool and move this one down a little bit so that maybe that's what it's doing instead. Okay, I think I might like that better. Let's just see how that works. Yeah, maybe something like that. And then I can turn the opacity back up and see if I like that any better. And I think I might like that a little bit better. Maybe this point does need to come up a little bit so that it has a little bit more heft. Maybe this can come up here so it has a little bit more of an angle. Maybe even this one can come in a little, just a little bit, so that it has a little bit of a steeper incline. And then this one, let's take a look here. I'll come down with this point a little. Maybe that's okay. And then maybe this one can be, let's see. Yeah, I think I like that one okay there. And let's see where I had that. Yeah, I think that's probably fine. Right? And so move that like that. And I think I might be a little bit happier with that as my outline shape. Okay, so that's a good starting place. Now again, I'm going to turn the opacity of this down because I need to be able to see these other pieces that are inside of it. And again, I'll go over here to my pen tool. I want to make sure that I've got shape selected. And for fill, I think I'm just going to turn the fill off. See this little strike through? Right now I'll turn the fill off. Oops, actually turn the fill off of this shape. But in fact, here, let's just click off of it so that this shape is not active. I'll click like on the type tool or something so that it's not active. And then I'll make sure that my fill color for my next shape is going to be the transparency strike through. Okay, so now I can take this, make sure it's got shape, my pen tool, and I can go ahead and start to draw And you see automatically it creates a new shape path over here. And I can just kind of outline this a little bit. And I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing based on where my lines are. Maybe I want an extra thing right there. Let's see. I'll go to my add anchor point. I'll add it there. I need to convert that. Okay, let's drag that back down like here. Maybe that's good. Okay, so this might be a good path. And in fact, let's call this shape, let's call it let's call it, yeah, let's call it base mountain. Okay, and then here we'll call it left mountain shape. And then the next one we'll call right mountain shape. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my pen tool again. Let's choose my pen tool, and then we'll create a new shape over here. Just kind of draw it from here. And then I'll close my shape path. And then I've got another shape, so we'll call this, in my layers, we'll call it right mountain shape. All right, and so if I want to see what these two things look like, I could easily just go over here in my layers panel and I can select them. I'll hold down the shift key and I select both of these and I can give them a new fill of white. Oh, that's actually kind of a gray color. That's pure white, I think. Here, let's make sure. Yeah, that's pure white. Okay, and so I've got that filled. And then for the base mountain, I actually want that to be on bottom. That's why it looks dark, is because it was on top. So for the base mountain, I can turn the opacity up. And then right now, that's the basic shape of my mountain would look like for my vector path. And I'm going to go ahead and group this set of mountain paths. So I'll select all of these and I'm just going to click the folder icon and I'll just call that mountain, right? And I'm not really happy with the way that this turned out exactly. I feel like some of these points need to be refined a little bit more. So instead of making you watch me sort of fool around with it, I'm just going to pause this, and when come back, it's magically going to look a little bit different. But the point is, I've shown you how you can use all these tools over here to, oops, not the text tool, like the path selection, direct selection, how you can look at stuff within the pen tool, including, you know, like adding anchor point, deleting it, converting the type, whether it's round, point, whatever. Okay. Okay, so I went ahead and I made a few more refinement changes, and you'll notice that the angles are a little bit sharper. I might have added I think I added a point over here, I added a point here. Anyway, and so I think I'm a little bit happier with the way that that looks as a mountain. If I want to hide that, that actually looks like a mountain. I'm pretty happy with the way that this looks like a sort of a snow cap, and so on. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and save what I did as well, and you'll see I've got this thing that is called logo drawing because it's based off of the original JPEG. So I'll just call this logo PSD, and I'll save it in my project folder. Okay, and there are a few things that I want to point out about this mountain. And first of all, this is this is what it looks like with the text, and you'll notice that it's not in perfect alignment right now with itself. Also, the blacks are a little bit different, so you want to make sure that when you're selecting black that it's going to be the purest of black, and I think that the black that's down here isn't the purest of black. So let's go to the text tool and let's make sure that the black that we've got on all of this is going to be pure black, so it's not on pure black. Let's move it all the way down, and so that way when we look at it we don't see two different colors that give us a different impression. And so these items, they're not centered with each other. So first of all, let's take a quick peek at the image size. Let's do this really fast. It's 1800 wide. So what I need to do is I have my rulers visible. If you don't, you can do Command if you're on a Mac, or Control on a PC with the letter R, and it makes your rulers visible or invisible like that. So show your rulers, and then you can drag a guideline out, and if mine is 1800 wide, then the middle point is 900, so it snaps to the center. And then that way I can align my text and my my mountain to that center point. So the text is aligned center. So I should be able then to grab my move tool, click on the text tool, and I should be able to, if I hold shift down, make sure that it centers itself, and it should snap on center. Okay, and if I click on this with the text tool, let's see, yeah, let's blow this up a little bit. And even though the eye isn't directly centered, it is actually centered, it so it's snapping because that's the way I had it set. And if you don't have snap turned on, you can go up to view and turn snap on. Make sure it's snap to guides is turned on. If you use a guide, or if you're using a grid, do then grid. And then for my mountain, actually that looks pretty good now that I changed that. For my mountain, what I would do is I would just select the entire group, and I can move the entire group. Oops, hold on, that's not correct. All right. Actually, let's go ahead and let's group all of these in our selection by clicking the Shift key as I select each of these, and now I should be able to get them to snap to that center point, and you see that it's going to want to snap, and that's actually technically on center. It doesn't maybe look like it. So for this one, what we might do is we might just defer to the way that it originally was, because that actually looks more like it's in line. And if we think we need to nudge it, like maybe nudge it over 1, that might be helpful. Right, and so I think that that's probably pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and view, and under show, I'll hide my guide. And so this is a good starting point. You could also look at this and make a decision now that I've got my my mountains up here. I'm not 100% sure that I like this being so much space in between the word Spire and Outdoor Adventures. So I might go back over here, select my text tool, and adjust my line spacing again. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up my character panel. Let's do that, or yeah. And let's adjust the leading so that it's not quite so tall. Let's maybe see what 110 looks like. That might be a little bit better. Let's maybe even go down to 105, and let's take a look at that. So I'll click off, and even though I don't need the spaces to be even, but I think that that looks a little bit better. It's a little tighter. Okay, so in the next video, now that we've got our basic logo set up, we're going to talk about how to deal with the fact that we've got white snow caps. And really what I would want to do is create this so that it's a knockout. When I mean knockout, I mean that I would want to be able to subtract these white snowcap shapes out of my mountain background, because let's say, what would happen if I wanted to print this on a yellow shirt, right? And I wanted to only spend the money for the color black ink. Then I need to not have to also be able to print white. And if you'll remember, without these shapes, that's what I've got, and that's pretty ugly, and I don't like it, right? This is the way I want my logo to look. And so that means that I need to get rid of these, and I'll show you in the next video how to do that. It's always really important whenever you're doing logos that you always be able to maintain the option of printing it in a single color, because maybe you want to do a single color t-shirt, or maybe you want to be able to embroider it on a polo shirt or something like that using a single color stitch. So anyway, you get the idea. Move on to the next video.